it's a high-intense day. There's a lot of pressure to perform because it is your one opportunity to show the scouts what you're made of, what you can do, and hopefully catch someone's eye for them to give you an opportunity to come play for them.
Cory Reamer, former Alabama SEC and national champion, multiple state champion at Hoover High School, linebacker for the Crimson Tide, is our guest. You know, these scouts and coaches, they've got a whole season or really career of these guys on tape, watching them play football on the football field, which always has seemed to me like it should trump everything else. But these combines, these pro days, how you run the 40, how you do in the shuttle, how high your vertical is, it seems to carry so much weight, maybe to me more than it should, based on, you know, it's really about playing football. How hard did you prepare for this, and how hard do most of these guys prepare for this event, getting ready, working with trainers, trying to get a 10th or 2 tenths off their 40 time? How much goes into preparing for pro day?
I mean, it's every day. I think ever since when January got, when we finished in the Rose Bowl until this pro day, every morning at 7 a.m. Was spent working on verticals and all the testing drills, working on your stance, to your footwork, and how to shave time off your 40, how to add an extra couple inches to your vertical, to your broad jump. It was all technique driven, and it was, because it does, like you said, it carries a lot of weight. And I'm kind of in the camp with you that, put the tape on, see if the kid can play football, and that should carry enough. But these guys rely heavily on how you perform on your 3-cone drill and your 40, and just whatever position you're playing. They've got certain metrics that they're going to be looking for that's going to tell them whether or not you have the athletic ability to make it in the NFL. And then also, you go take the Wonderlic test. There's actually practice for that as well leading up to the combine. They've got mock Wonderlic tests that you go through to try to improve your score, because it's also something that people get criticized for low scores, and people get rewarded for high scores. It does carry weight, and I actually never thought the combine should carry as much weight until Coach Saban came to Alabama, and you hear him talk about what he looks for when he's out recruiting high school kids. And it's just the little things that most people probably don't pay attention to, but tells him whether or not this guy's going to be an athlete, or if he's, if he can bend at the hips, knees, and ankles is one thing I know he looks for out of all his high school recruits. That tells him whether he can change direction and he can mold that guy into a player, because he's got the natural ability to bend. And so I'm sure in these scouting combines and these NFL scouts come to these things looking for the same types of little signs, whether or not these guys can make it in the NFL. I mean, it carries a lot more weight than you think it does.
So in other words, Cory, there is a template that they are using in terms of, as you said, what they're looking for: height, speed, size. And even if you're a good football player, if you don't fit that template, it's going to be much more difficult to get drafted. That's why these days are so important.
Oh, it is. I mean, take for Derrick Henry, for example. It's everybody knows he can run when he gets out in space, and then his 3-cone and his shuttle drill were particularly important for him, because everybody was questioning his ability to be able to shift in the backfield, make people miss in a telephone booth, is a term they always use. And he proved that he does have the quick twitch muscles that can make people shift when he went to the combine. He made a lot of people happy by the way he moved. And then in other positions like the defensive line, you don't really focus on the 40 for those guys, although it does tell you, a little bit about their speed and athleticism, but you're wanting to see how fast they move, shifting in a 3-cone drill and a shuttle drill as well, and then broad jump tells you how explosive somebody is out of their hips, which is something that, you want out of your linebackers and all your positions for that matters, because it's where a lot of the movements in football start is in the hips. It's not exactly about just how high you jump. It tells you a little bit more, and that's the template that those guys go by. It tells you what athletic ability they have and their natural movements. So it's a lot of pressure when you go in, and then at the end you get to do a lot of football drills, not just measurements. But the first part is kind of like going it's like a meat market. You're in there, and they're poking and prodding and measuring you and judging you on those measurements. And it's like, you either an A class or you fall down depending on what you do that day.
2009 Alabama National Championship linebacker Cory Reamer is our guest here on the Gary Harris Show, courtesy of the Bud Light Hotline presented by Adams Beverages, talking about the NFL Combine, and we're going to get into some other subjects as well before I let Cory go. Jake Coker did not get invited to the Combine. I was very disappointed. I'm sure he was more disappointed, and his representatives were more disappointed than me, but I thought he deserved it. You lead Alabama to a national championship, 14-0 as a starter. Their one loss, he didn't start against Ole Miss. You've got the measurables at 6'5" and about 240 pounds, strong arm. Granted, there's some things he clearly needs to work on, but with not getting an invite to the Combine, even though he played in the Senior Bowl, how critical is today for Jake Coker if he wants an opportunity to be drafted?
The good thing about, there's good and bad things about him not getting invited. I'm with you. I think that anybody who leads a team to a national championship, even if they made the decisions, which Phil Savage always talks about, with the decisions of invites were made in December. Well, yeah, I get that, but for a guy who won a national championship, you make you let him in late for reasons. He deserved a spot to be there, but. The good thing about the University of Alabama is they got a lot of exposure on what he can do. They know what kind of quarterback he is. His games are always on TV on Saturday. They've seen his ability. Although I know he probably wanted to be there, the scouts that were there at the Combine watching the other quarterbacks compete probably weren't as aware of what those guys can do. But so for Jacob today, it's going to be important. But everybody that's going to be there watching him already sees what he's accomplished and how he's able to play and lead his team, which he's done a great job of this year. But he's definitely going to be determining whether or not he moves up in the draft or down in the draft on his performance today. But they're also going to give him some opportunities. If there's some faults today, there's going to be other chances for him just because quarterback is such a critical position in the NFL. But it's a big day for him for sure, since he didn't get invited to Indianapolis.
Cory, you watched him play this year, his 1 year as a starter, leading your alma mater to another national championship. What do you think? Do you think he can play in the National Football League?
I think he can. I think he's got the ability to do it. He came out this year with a little bit of slower start, but the thing that impressed me the most and what I'd be looking for if I was a coach is going to be the adversity that he overcame, the situations he was put in and the comebacks that he led, and the heart that he plays with. You can coach everything else, but you can't coach that, and that's kind of the way I was as a player. It wasn't a natural ability. I was not anywhere close to being Rolando McClain. I will never put myself in that category, but he's a smart kid, knows the playbook, knows where his reads are, knows how to make plays with his feet and his arms. So, I mean, he's definitely earned himself a shot at playing on Sundays. The NFL is an elite league, though, and it's NFL is short for not for long, and there's a reason for it. There's guys that come and go all the time. So, hopefully he gets an opportunity. I think he deserves it, and hopefully he can find a way to make his career last for a long time, because he's earned his way. It's been a long road, a long journey from Mobile to Tallahassee back to Tuscaloosa, and he's fought hard for what he's accomplished, and it's something that we should be proud of as Alabama fans.
Cory Reamer joining us on the Bud Light Hotline presented by Adams Beverages. You got your shot. You showed well at the Pro Day. The Jets invited you to a rookie mini camp. You impressed Rex Ryan enough to get a contract, and really wasn't waived until I think right before the season. You were featured some on Hard Knocks, which I know was a lot of fun for you. Talk about that experience, what that was like, going to an NFL training camp, playing for Rex Ryan, even though you didn't wind up making the final roster. Just your memories of that and what that meant to you to get that opportunity.
It was just something I never dreamed of, that I would actually be given the chance. But a lot of what Coach Saban taught me, and all the coaches, Coach Salsonsterry, Kirby Smart, Scott Cochran, with the things that I learned at Alabama really gave me the chance to stick around as long as I did. It was extremely exciting. It was one of those things that you walk in a locker room, and the NFL is a little different where they don't spend a ton of money on their facilities, kind of like colleges do, because recruiting is such a big thing in college these days. You got to impress the kids. But I was fortunate enough to go to the Jets, who had just built a brand new facility, and it was really cool to walk in and see LaDainian Tomlinson, Jason Taylor, Bart Scott, Mark Sanchez, all those guys. A lot of guys who are going to be future Hall of Famers. DeBrickashaw Ferguson, guys that you watch on Sunday, and I've seen throughout growing up because they've been in the league for so long. And to sit in the meeting room next to Jason Taylor and learn from him is an experience I'll never forget. Of course, being a rookie, there's some drawbacks to that as well. Get to carry everybody's pads and helmets and all that stuff, but that's part of it. That's when you grow relationships with those guys. But Rex was a good coach. He was completely different from the coaches that I've had in high school with Coach Probst and Coach Saban. He was a laid-back guy. He knew he expected a lot of you when it was time to work, but he was very laid-back, loved practical jokes, loved to tell funny stories, and cut up with his players. And it was a different experience than I've ever had. And I really enjoyed it. Spent 6 months living in the Marriott in New Jersey with another roommate from Nevada. It was, and especially the Hard Knocks mix, that was the kind of thing that I was excited about or kind of nervous about going into it, not sure what it was going to be like. I was a religious Hard Knocks guy. I loved watching every season. We would huddle around the TVs during football training camp at Alabama and watch the most recent episode of Hard Knocks. And so when they told me I was going to be a part of it, and they'd show up at 5 o'clock in the morning to mic you up at the hotel, and you're sitting there barely awake, in your boxers and can't even see straight yet, and they're coming in with cameras, watching you get dressed and following you to the car, and then focusing on you during practice and meeting rooms. And then we would actually get to see the episode because we were still in training camp a week after they filmed, and so the Jets as a team would sit around and watch the episodes, and you were just praying that you were not highlighted for the negative things. And it was there were a few moments that were definitely embarrassing, but the worst was when I actually drove my car up to New Jersey for training camp, and so they knew my vehicle. And when I pulled into that facility the day after the last preseason game, and I saw the camera crew sitting out front, and they're relaxing, just waiting for guys to come in, and it was cut day. They saw my vehicle pull in, and they immediately picked their camera up and started filming us as we were pulling into the parking lot. I knew it probably wasn't going to be the best outcome for me, but it was something I'll never be able to be thankful enough to the Jets for the opportunity, and I'll remember those days for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's easy to see. Those are fond memories. Hey, before I turn you loose, I want to get into how you wound up at Alabama. Some people know this. I'm sure a lot of others don't. If you had your way growing up and coming out of Hoover, you would have been an Auburn Tiger. You were from an Auburn family. That was your goal. You were at the powerhouse program in the state. At that time, though, Tommy Tuberville was the Auburn head coach, and they had it rolling pretty good. Alabama was not in such a good position with Mike Shula, but it was Alabama that really came after you hard and wanted you. And even though your dream was to play at Auburn, you took the scholarship offer to Alabama. And it's weird how life can, one fork in the road this way, one this way. You took the Tuscaloosa fork. It worked out pretty well, but tell that story, how you wind up coming to Alabama rather than your lifelong dream of going to Auburn.
Yeah, it was never thought I'd see the day. Yeah, like you said, we were Auburn fans growing up, and got the opportunity to go down when Coach Tuberville was there as a junior and go to camp one day, and was extremely excited about it. And Alabama had been in talks with me, and they were pursuing me pretty hard. And so I was just like, I told my dad, I said I want to go down at least. Go to camp and see what happens. And went down and just left extremely disappointed. Not in the fact of the way I did that day, but just and I can't blame them. They like you said, they were undefeated that year, had a lot of recruits that wanted to be there. And for a guy from Hoover, local kid, in-state kid that wanted to at least get an opportunity to say no or yes to them was just not. It wasn't there.
You just weren't a priority for them at that time.
I just wasn't a priority, and that's okay. That's part of the business. I understand how the business works. Luckily for me, Alabama was, and I went to Auburn and went through camp, came home, and I told my dad, I said, man, that just wasn't as good as when we went to Tuscaloosa, because I went to Tuscaloosa before and went through their camp, and the coaches gave me a lot of attention and acted like they wanted me there and were excited that I was there that day and spent a lot of time with me, which I'm sure Auburn coaches were doing that with other players. And so it's hard to say, it's hard to turn down to go somewhere where you're wanted. And I was, it didn't take long for me to convert. Now, the rest of the family, it may have taken a little bit longer. When Coach Shula came over to eat dinner and Coach Cheese, Charlie Harbison, came over, we still had our Auburn prints up in our living room. My dad did, and I begged him to take them down, and he wouldn't for anything. He said, this is my house. I'm leaving them up. So Bo Jackson and Pat Sullivan hung in our living room as Coach Shula sat there and ate dinner with us. And he didn't pull the scholarship, which I was very, very thankful for. But in the long run, it worked out for me really well. Got to come in with a great recruiting class of guys. Guys well, the Baron Hubers, John Parker Wilson, Preston Dials, and Chris Rogers, and everybody, Roy Upchurch, and all those guys that I'll forever have relationships with. Mike Johnson, very thankful that I was given the opportunity. And it was a time in Alabama where it wasn't, as sexy as it is now to be an Alabama commitment. And, we went through the ups and the downs. So appreciating the championship that we won is something some guys down there right now don't understand what it's like to go to back-to-back Independence Bowls. It's been Christmas in Shreveport, so we appreciated the turnaround of the program a lot, and we're very proud of what we accomplished, and very thankful that we were able to get Coach Saban. Thank you, Coach Moore, being able to bring him in and give us an opportunity to do what we did. So not very difficult for me to cheer against Auburn these days. It's a full conversion for me. It didn't take long at all when I committed to them, and very thankful for the opportunity that I had to go down there.
And I guess the entire family eventually came around, huh? Because I remember your senior day. They were all proudly out there with you on the field.
They were. They sure were. They came around pretty quickly. It didn't take long at all. It just took I'm sure it was a little shock and awe at first, but they're still wearing their crimson and white very proudly. My little sister followed me to Alabama on her own route, but she wound up going to Alabama and has been doing very well. So we're all converted. We're extremely proud of what's going on, and it worked out well for me. Winning a championship down there was a life changer. You see these kids that, unfortunately, the kid from Montana who could be committed from Alabama and went to South Alabama. I just hate to see a guy like that who walked away from an opportunity, whether or not he would have played his first few years, to give up the opportunity for when his football career is over with, to be a part of the Alabama family and the connections and relationships that I've made. I know will go a lot further than the playing time that I had, and I hate to see kids like that pass up on opportunities for sure. And wish him well. Hope he does well at South Alabama, but it is a decision that he had to make, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity that I had to go to Alabama.
Well, as you said, Cory, it was your class that came in under Coach Shula that was there for the transition to Coach Saban. In 2008, you were close, and then in 2009, it really was the class that got this program to where it's at now and continues to be. It's been an amazing run. Hey, real quickly before I let you go, talk about what you're doing now. I know you just got married and you're at a different point in your life living in Birmingham. Tell our listeners exactly what you got going on right now in your life.
Yeah, I am. Just recently married as of September. So I was getting an earful of where we're going on our 1-year anniversary trip here this morning. So married life is treating me well. But we've living in Birmingham, working for Bryant Bank. Been there for the last 3 months. Was with an investment firm before then, and then opportunity to do the same thing with Bryant Bank came along. So very excited about that transition. Things are going really well. Mr. Bryant's a phenomenal man to learn from. He's been very successful. But married life is going extremely well. We've added a puppy to the mix, so we're just keeping ourselves busy as we possibly can, playing as much golf as we possibly can, and I'm excited that summer's here.
Well, maybe you and I and your dad can get back out on the course sometime. Hey, good to catch up with you, my friend, and glad you're doing well, and thanks for some interesting insight this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Appreciate it.